Welcome to the social circle where creators come together to turn ideas into impact and goals into a reality. I am Candace, and this is
Jennifer, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And I'm super excited that you guys are here joining us from wherever you are. And let's get into this today.
we are going to be talking about storytelling and how you can connect with your audience through telling your own story. And before we come to that, I'm just going to share a quick story of my own. Recently, I posted a podcast about relationship in my life that was with a narcissist. And I started posting about it on threads and I posted about it on TikTok, just different snippets. And the reaction from people has been overwhelmingly beautiful. And just the level of responses and people relating to it, sharing their own stories because they connected to it on a deeper level. And that's the power of storytelling. It sticks and it helps you find your people and it builds those real connections, making them feel something. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today, showing you how to use storytelling in your content to build trust, grow your audience, and create an impact.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I want to point out too that it's a really great endorphin rush when somebody can look at somebody else's story and be like, "Oh my God, they said the exact thing I was thinking." And that's where when we're learning as a creator how to market the right way using storytelling and that kind of fact. So our circle hack this morning is going to be where we are going to give you a simple structure to start out where you're setting up a story and then you're introducing us to the conflict and then you're showing us the resolution. So one really visual example that I wanted to share today was Lion King. And you remember falling in love with Simba and his dad Mufasa, and then you were crushed when Mufasa ended up dying. And it's because his brother like him and threw him into the gazelle stampede. And in the end, you're just like rooting and cheering Simba on because he ended up becoming who his dad always knew he could be. That is like the epitome of a story that you can share with your audience that will really trigger emotions for you.
Yeah, I think we should preface with we think storytelling is super, super, super important. But when you're speaking your story, maybe you wait until you have a little bit larger of an audience to speak to. And that by that I mean like actually speaking, like talking, right? Because somebody isn't likely to stick around for too long unless you have a really great story and you start out strong, right? With a good hook. But most of the time, you can tell your story through other ways just by posting a 5 to 7 second video with text on the screen and not even actually speaking.
I definitely agree with that. And I'll say this from my own experience. When I got started in my journey of learning digital marketing and creating content that resonated with people, I came from like pain point marketing teachings. And for me, it was, trying to dig down deep and understand who I was when I found all of the digital marketing I was trying to learn. And it was resonating on some levels where I would share a story and I would say had once experienced postpartum depression and I was going through a financial struggle, and so I came to the internet to learn how to make extra income. And this is where I am today, where I now have a podcast with Candace and I've networked so much. I didn't really like connecting on the pain point part. And Candace, I know, does a really good job with verbally speaking about her stories. And I was never personally a big speaker in my content. So it was always a difficult struggle for me to do a talking 30-second video. And so that's why I chose the route of using like just an overlay B-roll and then some text on screen that literally connected on a nostalgic emotion for somebody. And that's how I'm choosing to build my audience. You can do this in all kinds of different ways. But this is where Candace mentioned at a certain point, talking to your audience about your story can also be a huge thing.
I think of it like a mini movie. You don't have to be a professional storyteller. You're just sharing what happened, right? The background, you're setting it up. the conflict, what happened, and then the resolution. What was the takeaway? How did it end for you? The key there is making it relatable. If your audience can see themselves in you and in the story you're telling through your content, then they're going to feel connected to you.
Totally agree. And that's something that will take time to learn that skill. And doing it every day, small amounts of time will definitely help and it will improve over time. And even if you feel not confident enough to do it, just do it anyway. Even if you don't post it, just record yourself anyway so that you get through that process of I don't know how it's going to come out. I don't know how to speak on camera. There's a infinite ways to be using storytelling with confidence, but getting started is what we're trying to help you do.
Actually, it's funny because science shows that our brains literally light up when we hear a story, like remember them way more than facts or data or statistics. Just the story that somebody told us that's relatable. And people aren't out there buying the products, they're buying the feeling and the experience that that product or service is going to give them, whether it's saving them time, saving them money, making their life easier at home, anything like that, that's going to help that feeling and experience and emotion. So think about the best posts you've ever engaged with. They probably were not perfect. They probably weren't like the most polished and perfect things. Like they weren't the best, right? They were just real.
I agree with all of that. And it's definitely giving that like what is it? Somebody watching through the window. I can't remember the
Hmm.
exact phrasing, but letting them into your life because they're always curious. People are always going to be curious how the other person is living life.
Yeah.
And that's why so many influencers have such great followings because they've mastered that skill of letting people in just enough with that little story that they're telling. I think Jeffree Star, I didn't really follow at all, but they, now got their own makeup line and literally the only thing that they're doing is just chatting with us like a coffee and then showing a product that they're using while, and this
Mhm.
is one example, like I said, infinite ways of storytelling, but their main character here is telling something that's going on and then in the background of what's happening they're showing a product. And if you're trying to do, product-based content but storytell in a way, that's one idea. I myself got connected to a mom on Instagram who was just dancing around on the screen, and she would have like a voiceover saying, I look like I'm having a great time dancing, but deep down, I'm going through the worst kind of depression and anxiety at my age that I've never realized before. And this is what I'm doing to get through it. I'm talking and sharing and, therapy and all of these things. And I'm like, shit, that's me on that day. So it's like I connected to her because she was very real and raw in her open. I'm not telling you guys to come out here and, just give us the whole thing,
Yeah,
planning out the
oversharing can
strategy.
feel a little messy
Yes,
sometimes.
oversharing and telling too much at once is not the best strategy to go with. In fact, it can be a deflector. And we'll go back to being authentic with sharing your storytelling. Just be you because there's only one you. And I don't think anybody can copy you and it come off as authentic as you could do it. So definitely always remember that you are only you and you can tell your story only the way you can. I think that's like the biggest thing that a lot of people forget. You either don't have the confidence or you just don't believe you can do it. And you totally can. You just have to come up with a creative way to do it so that you're comfortable and then that comes across in your content.
That's why brands like Apple and Nike don't just say, here's our product. They tell you a story.
Oh yeah.
They tell you a
I love their
story.
commercials.
Yeah. It's their story, but also they make you feel like you can relate to it. So they use their story, but they make it about their audience and they use everything from happiness to frustration. Every emotion possible helps your content stick. Even the small everyday moments can be powerful if they're told the right way.
Sharing your cup of coffee with us. I know we have a mentor of ours that does every day. She does a coffee chat where she just shows up on screen with her cup of joe and she's just raising her glass and then her whatever her thought is for the day, it's her coffee chat. And it resonates with so many people because it's such a relatable, hey, I'm just here chatting with you guys. And that's the kind of feel you want to have, that kind of open conversation. Going off of Nike, which everybody loves Nike, I'm going to choose to go with Taylor Swift as my icon of the moment here because I find that her marketing skill has just been elevated over the last 2 decades that we've been watching this child.
Yeah,
Because if
she's
you,
brilliant. She is a
she's
brilliant
amazing.
marketer.
Yeah, and she started with just, showing up and talking about the powerful storytelling that she does in her songwriting, but not only in the songs that she's written, it's just her entire presence in her tours, in her social media. She's just very real and raw. And that's one thing that so many people just admire about that person is the fact that she's able to come out and just share everything, but in such a way that I don't even know if she knows she's doing it, but we're just falling in love with how she's sharing everything with us. And that did take practice for her because I think that her level of marketing, I think what is it now, the Eras tour, and this is where she did the marketing genius behind it. She redid her entire all of her albums all on her own in her own tours. And now she's just like multimillionairing it up. But I think the fact that she understood that and she just redid everything on her own was like the biggest thing that I admire about her.
She creates an amazing, just emotional connection with her audience, and that's why people keep coming back.
For
Like,
sure.
that's why
Yeah.
people keep coming back. I do want to highlight today inside of our VIP circle, Jess, scrunchiemom.com. And just to talk about telling your story, she shares a lot about her views, her life, her home life, her switching out ingredients, making things from scratch, that kind of a thing. So this is Jess's account, scrunchiemom.com. And you'll see that she regularly posts, different things. She no longer things she doesn't buy at the grocery store and things like that. This one here she posted recently. Okay, now she got some pretty nasty comments that I don't even want to show on our podcast, honestly. Um, but she was sharing her story. She was sharing about who she was. So the engagement was off the charts because not only did she find her audience in there, she got some hate comments, which again, I didn't want to share on the podcast. If you want to see it, we'll link her video in the show notes. But that's just it was her way of keeping it real.
Mhm.
Like this is not just a business. This is not just a fun thing. Like, this is me. This is who I am. This is why I matter. Like, and that's what makes content stand out. And I have said this so much when you invite in controversy by sharing something that you strongly believe in and that you could stand 10 toes down on, there's no negative effect to that if you can handle the crappy comments, right? If you can handle the crappy comments, because sometimes you can't, and that's okay mentally. Sometimes you can't. We've talked about that before. Sharing who you are, sharing your story, it connects with people. And remember that when you introduce something like that, that's sharing your story or that's sharing a part of who you are. Typically, I have noticed and I have heard from other creators that that content will get lower views. Kind of like a business post, right? So that content will get lower views. But in the end, you actually are introducing more of who you are. You're being more authentic and you're finding your true audience. So as long as you can put up with nasty comments, I'm all for it.
I think that's great to point out because that's a factor that stops a lot of people from storytelling or understanding what kind of storytelling they want to share. And as you saw in the example, it was literally just pictures, and then she just had a phrase, I am whatever this political or I am whatever this is. And I feel when I saw that, I looked at it and I was like, okay, so I already know who she is because I've already watched her And a lot of her content in that one reel was very, very relatable to who she is and who she's trying to find. And I think that's the skill that we're all trying to learn here and trying to help you learn is that, you want to elicit that emotion through a visual stimulant, a verbal stimulant, an auditory stimulant, anything that kind of draws in that endorphin emotion, to get people to say, "Oh my God, that's me," or we've had another podcast about our shareable content. That's something that people just can't help themselves and say, "I need to send this to somebody else. This is so me." That's the goal ultimately here. That's what you want to do with your storytelling. And I think if you don't let all that negativity, like Candace just said, get in your way, as here's the thing with negative stuff, you can delete that crap. You can leave it there, let it ride. You can let people comment and it'll just, roll it even more through the algorithm. But if you're the type that can't do it, then you just focus on the positives and you point out all the great things that people will say. And that's something to remind yourself of every time you go into it. And I hope that today's podcast was like helping you figure out a little bit, or at least spark some inspiration for you on what kind of storytelling you could do it. Storytelling by speaking, storytelling by short reels with a subject on it, and then also just an auditory video thing. So on that note, if you were struggling to figure out how to connect with your audience, you want to DM us, and we are going to be just a marketing chick here and Jen Radelack here on Instagram. Please come and find us. And if you enjoyed this episode, you definitely want to make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you are ready for next level support, remember that we do live streams inside of our community twice a week. You can join our VIP social circle. And if you're new to content creation, once you get there, make sure you check out our boot camp. It's brand new. It's where we are going to walk you through mindset in being an entrepreneur all the way to scaling your business. And be sure you like and follow this podcast so that you get weekly updates from us, your girls, Candace and Jennifer.
That's right. Your sharing your story is what makes your content stand out. Just make sure people can feel seen because that's when they connect with you, and connection leads to community. So we'll see you next week.
See y'all.